Maynard James Keenan, the man, the myth, the legend.
Wow, it's a little much.
It is a little much. I know that you hate the whole rock star stardom, so I won't do all that.
Okay.
It is an honor to have you on the program, though.
Oh, thank you for having me.
This project, Pucifer, is it Pucifer or Pucifer? How do you pronounce? I've heard 10 different ways.
Puss in Boots, Pucifer.
Thank you for the clarification. Now, this band is definitely a little bit of a difference from Tool and a Perfect Circle, a little bit more electronic, a little bit more subtle. It seems to be a little bit more emotional and subconscious. How would you explain Pucifer to someone who's never heard you?
Well, I would describe it as a multimedia project that isn't necessarily just exclusively rooted in music. There's many more facets to it and many more angles and perspectives. So everything from animation to filmmaking to merchandise to gardening.
Live, what can a listener, someone coming to your show, expect to see?
Yeah, well, first of all, let's eliminate the word expect, because expectations pave the road to hell. But I would say if you've seen some positive responses from the shows and you trust their those reviewers' judgments, and you trust my track record, I would say don't read anything beyond whether it was good or bad, and try not to indulge in the spoilers or look at videos on YouTube. Just kind of come with an open mind and enjoy it. It's definitely something different for most people. It's a different setting. It's not a rock club. It'll be in a theater, so already the experience is going to be different for most people.
Lyrically, what can you do with this band that you can't do with anything else? Is there any particular differences in how you write your lyrics?
I don't know how to answer that. I'm sorry. I don't really think in terms of limitations of what I can't do with something or can or can't compared. There's just it's a different conversation. I'm sure that the conversation you have with your best friends is probably different from the conversation you have with your siblings or your parents. It's just different conversations.
Right.
So they just end up being different.
You must know that you have changed a lot of people's lives with your music.
I don't know that I don't know that I agree with that. I think maybe we were involved in some way as a catalyst. We just happened to be the soundtrack for something that they were doing for themselves. Mm-hmm. You were going to do that for yourself regardless. We might have just been kind of present. That's a bold statement to say that we've actually done it ourselves to you. That's not true. That's not true.
Okay.
Where you've gotten in your life is based on decisions you've made and the paths you've chosen. There might have been a soundtrack or a meal or a film that went along with that decision, but at the end of the day, in your heart, you've chosen your path and you've made your decisions. You can't give that credit away. Those are your choices.
Very true. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about was the fact that you have a vineyard. It was a documentary, Blood into Wine, talking about that, and not a lot of people actually know about that. What got you into making wine?
Just the process, again, the creative process, not unlike what's happening with Pucifer. They're kind of joined at the hip in a way because they kind of exist in a similar space, and the process is very parallel in terms of start to finish, watching something progress, and in a way kind of getting out of the way for the most part and letting it happen, and equal parts manipulating it a little bit, kind of guiding the story in a way. It's definitely attractive, sustainable creative process.
One of the interesting things that I found is that you have your vineyard in Arizona. What was it about Arizona that led you to Arizona? I mean, I know you've written about in some of the Tool songs, Arizona Bay, which is Bill Hicks references and stuff. Was that kind of the thinking process, or did you just kind of Arizona looks good?
I just didn't really like L.A., and I'd had some dreams about being in some a setting in a small town. And when I discovered that town, came across the town with a friend, I knew that was a place I was supposed to be. I grew up in a small town, so when I found this small town in Arizona, it just made sense to move there.
Living in a small town has got to help with the stalkers. I mean, you must have crazy stalkers.
I suppose.
How do you deal with that?
Shoot them.
Well, that is a very interesting way to deal with stalkers. Now, one of the questions I had for you, I know we have limited time. Bill Hicks, stand-up comedian. You turned on a lot of people to his work with the Tool albums. You were friends with him. Do you have any stories about Bill?
Just nothing that I would share. They're more personal stories. But, he was a good guy, and, we did want to we did want to work together before he was tragically left early.
Are there any comedians nowadays that are alive doing their stuff that you appreciate on that level that you did with Bill Hicks?
I really enjoy Tim and Eric Awesome Show. I think these guys are doing a really awesome job with stuff. As far as stand-up, of course, I've always been a fan of David Cross and Patton Oswalt, Louis C.K. There's a whole list of stand-ups. I've kind of focused more on sketch comedy stuff, though. I've always been a fan of Monty Python and Kids in the Hall and Mr. Show and The State.
Oh, The State is classic. I wish they would bring that back.
Yes.
Now, one of the things that I'm curious about, Neil Young recently said in an interview that piracy is the new radio. What's your take on file sharing and the way technology has kind of affected the music industry?
I think it's a much bigger conversation. I think part of the problem with probably most of that is just the foundation of respect or entitlement. I think entitlement is probably the better word. I think just in general, our society has gotten to the point where just you click a button, you get what you want when you want it. So until we get to a point where we realize you don't necessarily always get what you want when you want it, we're going to have a problem. So it stems from there. And then things like file sharing and the Internet kind of lend themselves to that mindset. So someday, hopefully, that will adjust that perspective. But the beauty with, again, getting back to winemaking is that, on a particular site that's very specific and a very specific grape coming from a specific region, it might only be 50 to 100 cases of this wine. And, of course, everybody's like, well, I want one. Where's mine? You don't get to have it. That's the point. You don't always get what you want.
It also brings a sense of value to those things. When you can just get anything you want, it kind of cheapens it.
Yeah, and until somebody's actually written the checks to record their own record and see everything that goes into it, they don't really understand that if you just take it, the current state of music, I'm sure there's a lot of creative stuff going on out there, but there certainly isn't. Of course, I'm being nostalgic, but it doesn't seem like there's as much creatively going on because most people can't afford to do it.
Right. Now, speaking of creative output, you've done quite a few collaborations. People, Trent Reznor, Mia Jovovich, Tori Amos, the Deftones. Do you have anybody that is on your dream collaboration list?
Yes.
Who would you love to do a collaboration with?
Elvis or Jimi Hendrix or both.
Is anybody alive that you would love to work with?
Oh, yeah, you didn't say that. You didn't
Sorry,
specify. You didn't.
A bit more specific.
I haven't really thought about it lately. You know what? I'll get back to you on that one.
Sounds good. What's some stuff that you're listening to? What's on your iPod playlist?
Ralph Stanley. I'm sorry, I had to click over to my playlist to make sure that I'm not lying to you. Dean Martin, Nina Simone, Tony Bennett, a little bit of AC/DC. Actually busted out some Squeeze the other day.
Wow.
I've listened to Squeeze in forever. Of course, some Autolux, Betty Davis. So it's kind of all over the map, really.
Now, your early life, before you were a musician, you were in the military. How did that affect you?
It's helped me organize. It's helped me find discipline in making sure that all these projects come off in a timely manner, efficiently. Definitely helps me from moving from city to city. You understand what to bring and what not to.
And what's some of the stuff that you do bring on the road?
Coffee. Never trust the local Starbucks. Bring your own. Yeah, I get different places that do interesting stuff and are getting solid products from solid roasters, and we just bring our own I bring my own little boiler and a Chemex setup.